Hello, Safe Harbor Yogis. Glad to be with you again. If you've not taken class with me before, my name is Jen. I've been practicing yoga for about 17 years going on now. So I'll share a little bit of my practice with you, and we'll go through some meditation and some very easy stretches. Everything that I teach is going to be able to be done on either a chair or on the ground, and I'll kind of cue to both of those things. So feel free to kind of express whatever you're feeling or stretching in that particular moment as well, whatever feels good in your own body. So you're more than welcome to kind of experiment a little bit with this within safety. But today, our main lesson that we're going through, it's kind of a part two from last week, if you were at last week's class, in regards to forgiveness and all of the aspects around that, as well as peace of mind. So we're going to go through both of those as well as more of our mental part of the practice, and we'll get some good stretches into. So let's get started. So those of you who are in chairs, I'll do a little demonstration as far as it goes. If you have not taken class with me before, as far as what I'm going to mean when I say things in the chair. And when you're on the ground, I'll cue to that one, so that'll be very easy as well. So getting into the chair here. All right, so I have one with wheels because I believe yours all do have wheels also. So that will work out well. Also, this is Jasper, my dog. If you have not met him yet, he will most likely be in every part of this video. So whenever we're in our chair, okay, there's two different positions basically that you could sit in. So there's this position where your back is against it, and the back of the chair and the whole back of your body is connecting with the chair here, and our feet are planted about hip width distance apart from each other with our feet flat on the ground. So this is going to be our relaxed pose or our resting pose. So whenever I do say to sit back into the chair, this is what I'm meaning by that. As far as when we're doing certain stretches that I would like for you to use your posture for, we're just going to scoot ahead on the chair just a few inches within safety. Again, you know when the chair is going to tip, so just be careful with that. You can always walk your feet out an extra little bit as well, just for extra stability as you move forward on the chair within a safe distance from the back, but also using your own posture and sitting up straight as I'm showing. And whenever I mention about folding, so folding does not mean we're folding a shirt or anything like that, but what we are simply doing is we're hinging at the waist forward. So it would be something along these lines of bringing our heart toward the ground. Okay, so that's pretty much where we're going to be at in the chair for most of the time. The rest will be self-explanatory going through. So do your best. I'm just going to scoot myself back so you can actually see my legs there. First, let's find our way to our mat or find our way to our chair itself here. Get yourself comfortable. Sit back onto the back of the chair like I just mentioned about, or lay down on your mat. And once you're situated and laid down on your mat or sitting against the back of your chair, just simply come into the space, into the room. Close the eyes or lower your gaze. And we're going to take one really big breath together here with what's called lion's breath, which I really do enjoy doing just because I feel like it does actually release some tension and release some energy that's in you that might be pent up. So for this particular breath, we're going to go in through the nose and out through the mouth, but you can sigh on that exhale. So if you feel like you have a noise that needs to come out, I won't know you're doing it. This is just a recording for right now, but again, feel free to do so. You are more than welcome. I've heard some very strange things throughout my career in yoga, so feel free to make any noise that comes to you. We're going to go in through the nose and out through the mouth and take a really deep breath. And what I want you to focus on in this breath is letting go of any tension that might be in your body. So let's take that deep breath in through the nose. And out the mouth, picture everything letting go. Let the belly fully deflate. Let your lungs deflate. Feel that difference as that breath leaves. And keeping the eyes closed or the gaze low, uh, just simply coming into the room with your minds, knowing that your body's there, and just knowing that there's no other responsibility that you have at this time with me. There's nothing else that you have to worry about or think about other than the task at hand. And just giving yourself that sense of peace, that you don't have to be in 16 places at once. You can simply be here now, and that's all that's required of you. And what I'd like to focus on here today, again, like I said, is forgiveness and peace of mind, which kind of go hand in hand. So I know I had mentioned it briefly in my class from last week for the Buddhist prayer of forgiveness. And I think that that is really the best explanation and best way to put this into words as far as forgiveness does go. So what it says is, if I have harmed anyone in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly through my own confusions, I ask their forgiveness. If anyone has harmed me in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly through their confusions, I forgive them. If there's a situation I'm not ready to forgive, I forgive myself for that. For all the ways that I harm myself, negate, doubt, belittle myself through my own confusions, I forgive myself. So overall, you're asking for forgiveness from anyone you may have harmed, either knowingly or unknowingly. Anyone that's harmed you. You're giving forgiveness to yourself for anything that you're not able to let go of just yet. And also you're forgiving yourself for any negative talk to yourself. So I feel that that is a pretty solid explanation of what point I wanted to get across here. Is that we do not need to do everything all at once. That there are different aspects to forgiveness. So you can't be like, okay, all is forgiven. There are different parts to it. So really coming into your own mind and knowing that, again, you're asking for forgiveness from anyone that you may have inadvertently or purposely harmed in the past. If there's anything that has harmed you, you forgive them. You're also forgiving yourself, again, for not being able to let go, and also for anything negative that you're saying to yourself constantly or persistently. So right now, again, without really putting specific words to it, I'm sure that there's some type of picture that does come to your mind when you think of forgiveness, as really all of us have some type of mental image of this. So whatever's speaking to you right now, go with it. And if there is some person or some particular thought that you've been having that you're feeling needs to be forgiven or falls into that category, or anything that is even out of this subject, feel free to work on whatever that is. Use that as your mantra, your intention for today's class. And let that be your focus for the next 40 or so minutes together. So slowly coming back into our bodies here now that we've been sitting and resting or laying down. Anyone who's on the ground, if you can come up to a comfortable seated position, please. And then we'll all wiggle our fingers and toes, make some small movements, just wake the body back up. And then from where we're seated, we're going to try to find a long spine all the way from our tailbone that's on our chair or the ground, all the way up through the top of our head and our fingertips. So we're going to bring our hands down by our sides, our arms to hang down. If you're on the ground, you can just let your fingertips graze the ground. Take an inhale and swing your arms high up over above the head. Come into a full body stretch here. Go ahead and spin your pinkies in toward one another, or like bringing your palms toward the back of the room. Let that open up your shoulders and your chest a little bit more by kind of just flipping those palms. And come into this full body stretch. Really reach high up into the ground as you're bearing down on the tailbone onto your chair or floor. And coming into some side stretching here, we're going to make this nice and easy. Again, those of you in chairs, we're still sitting against the back of it, so you can kind of use that for stability. Let's go ahead and drop our left arm down to the ground. Keep that right arm high into the air. Keep spinning that pinky inward and palm back. And just give yourself a little twist, a little lean over, reaching toward the left as that left arm goes down. Those of you on the floor can just extend the right finger, or left fingertips rather, down toward the earth and kind of bring your arm out to the side. So coming into this stretch, feeling it on your right side of your body since we have the right arm risen. Take an inhale here. And on your exhale, swap those arms out. Go ahead and bring both arms back over top of the head here. Release the right arm down toward the ground this time. Let's stretch over toward the right here. Reaching that left arm high over top of the head and really getting that connection with the left side of your body here as that right arm is guiding toward the ground. Next inhale brings us back up to the middle here. Let's go ahead and sit away from the back of the chair for those of you who are there. So give yourself that little bit of space behind you. And we're going to move our feet out as well. So our feet are still hip width distance, and our knees are right over top of our ankles here. So coming into this seated position here, and you can see as I turn sideways what I mean by that I'm a little bit away from the back of the chair. So those of you on the ground, you can just sit with your legs in crisscross applesauce or whatever. Makes yourself most comfortable on the ground. Any really position will help you out. Or you can bring the soles of your feet together and your knees wide. That's always an option as well in yoga. So feel free to do that. But wherever you're at, whatever you feel touching the ground right now. And again, going back to a little bit of last week's class in the lesson of grounding, really feel yourself getting roots into the earth here a little bit, that you're having that connection, that you are part of this planet, you're not out there floating in outer space, that you do have some planted roots here. So really feel that connection with everything around you. And we're going to go through what's called cat and cow pose, which is rounding and arching the spine. So from a seated position, this could look a few different ways. So when you're on the ground, you have a little bit less movement, I'll say, than if you're in a chair. I feel like you have a little bit more action going on since you're risen from the ground, but it'll still look very similar. And this is going to be rounding and arching the spine. So the reason that we want to move in both directions is that, again, we always have some type of resistance that we have to kind of make sure we can bend back a little bit, and that we do have to, of course, hunch forward. So this is getting into both parts of that, and it releases that tension in the spine and most of the areas in the shoulders and the mid back. So coming into this here knowingly, you can bring your fingertips to your lap or your hands to your lap. I personally like to either let my hands come to my knees and almost use them as leverage, whether I'm seated on the ground or if I'm in a chair. So you can find whatever works best for you. But let's take a big, deep inhale together first. So inhale all the air you can. And then we're going to round the spine. So we're going to bring our belly button in toward our back. Let your chin drop to your chest. Let your shoulders come down and in a little bit here. So you're curling yourself into this ball and rounding the spine. So you can kind of grab onto the knees or let the hands slide down the shins a bit more. And then on our inhale, we're going to reach back up and arch the spine. So we're going to bring the hands back maybe to our hips. Let our gaze come up toward the sky. And then exhale, we're going to round out the spine here. So going through a few of these with our own breath. So each exhale, brings us into this rounded position and lets our hands slide down. And each inhale, what puffs up our belly, we're giving our hands that freedom to come back toward our hips to use that as leverage and bringing our gaze up toward the sky and our shoulders backward. So exhaling again, rounding out the spine, chin comes into the chest. Inhaling, puff the belly out, let the shoulders come back, let the hands come back and gaze go up. Go with 3 of these in your own pace here, exhaling as you round out the spine and inhaling as you puff out the belly and the chest and gaze upward. So going with your own breath here for another moment or so. And once you've gotten through 2 or 3 rounds of your own breath there, come back to that neutral seated position. So we're not rounding, we're not arching, we're not moving. Okay? So finding that here, and then we're just going to do some gentle movements with the shoulders and the neck here. So first, let's go ahead and bring our right arm over top of our head. Go ahead and bring your right hand over toward your left ear. So we're reaching it over top of our head here. Left arm can stay wherever you please. And we're just going to use this hand as a gentle weight. Just let go of some tension in the neck here. Let the hand become that weight and bring that right ear toward your right shoulder slightly. If you have any neck issues and this is too much, feel free to remove your hand. And then releasing that hand here, coming to the opposite one, bring your left arm over top of the head and go ahead and bring the left hand to the right ear. Give that little gentle nudge. Remove the hand if it's too much for you. Breathe here. And then next inhale, go ahead and remove that hand. Let it come back down to your lap. Let's shake our heads yes. Getting as much movement or as little movement as you'd like, making it as exaggerated as you please. And then switch, shake the head no. And then coming into some full movement with our neck here now that we've had it moving a little bit. We're going to go clockwise first. So bring your chin down to your chest. And we're going to go ahead and bring our, let's bring our left ear to our left shoulder. And then go ahead and roll the neck all the way back. Bring your gaze up toward the sky. Right ear comes to right shoulder, and then drop your chin down. You can feel free to let your chest kind of go down a little bit too in that. And then go a few more times in one direction, whatever feels good, and then swap sides. So feel free to go ahead and just move in the opposite way then. And then once you feel that you've kind of worked out any of those kinks in your neck, feel free to come back into stillness. You can have the eyes closed or the gaze low. You can feel free. I'm not doing anything super exciting on the screen, I promise. So coming back into stillness, now that we've worked the neck a little bit, let's get into the shoulders. So we hold a lot of tension, of course, in our shoulders, our low back, and our hips. Those are the biggest places that we like to just store all of this tension or anger or frustration or any of those things that we're kind of holding on to unnecessarily. So kind of working through all of those places. Let's go ahead and bring our shoulders up toward our ears. We're going to take that inhale as we do that. And on our exhale, we're going to kind of abruptly drop them all the way down. So we want it to be like a very intentional release of those shoulders. So take a deep inhale and bring your shoulders up toward your ears. Shrug them in. Let your chin come to your chest even. Take a big deep inhale again. And exhale, we're going to drop those shoulders and just let them fall back down. 2 more of those now that we know where we're going. Let's take that inhale, shrug the shoulders up, build that tension. On your exhale, just go ahead and drop them down. And one more time, inhale, shoulders come up toward our ears, tuck the chin in. Exhale, release the shoulders down. And now we're going to kind of move a little bit with both shoulders here. So we're going to first take our left arm. So left arm is going to do a little windmill here. So keep that stability in your feet or in your seat, whatever is planted on the ground. And we're going to go ahead and just rotate our arm up. So go ahead and swing that left arm up over top of the head. And then we're going to bring our gaze and bring our chest over toward the left. So left arm's lifted. We're going to bring our twist kind of over toward the left. And then I'm going to bring my arm back behind me as much as is comfortable. And then just swing it back through and bring my gaze back to the front of the room. So inhaling, bring the arm up. And go ahead and swivel the chest to the left side. Let the arm come back and circle all the way down as much as is comfortable. And again, the more that you're putting that arm out toward the left side of the room and less toward the back of the room, the more comfortable and more accessible the stretch will be. So one more time, let's inhale, bring that arm up, swivel the chest to the left, bring your arm back or over toward the left side, and then let that arm drop down. Same thing, right side. Let's swing that right arm high on an inhale. Bring your chest over toward the right and let your arm go back. And then go ahead and swing it down. 2 more. Inhale, arm rises. Exhale, arm goes back and down. 1 more time. Inhale, arm rises. Exhale, let it go back and down. Now going into that shrugging posture 1 more time, now that we've released some of that rotation in our shoulders, take that inhale and bring the shoulders up toward the ears. Exhale, let them drop. Beautiful. So now that we've gotten into the shoulders a little bit here, we're going to twist a little bit more. So kind of gaining on what we just did with that little bit of a swivel. So those of you on the ground, you can still stay seated and do the same thing here, just using the ground instead of the chair for your hands. So again, with feet planted, knees over top of our ankles here, if we look down, we can kind of notice that we're at that 90-degree angle. And from here, we're going to twist to the left first. So again, you can make this as easy or as hard as you wish. So depending on what you're looking for here, again, if you have that mobility in your shoulder, you can feel free to bring that left arm first all the way back to the back of the chair. Personally, I kind of like to just bring it to my hip. But you can use anything as leverage, or you can simply let this arm free float. So what we're going to do here is twist over toward the left first. So again, left arm comes either behind us or out to the side, or you can bring it to your hip. We're going to go ahead and just twist toward the back of the room. So you're going to bring your gaze over toward the left or all the way back toward the back of the room, whichever you can find in your own body. And you can use this right hand to kind of grab onto that left thigh and use that to spin yourself as well here. So giving yourself that extra oomph with that right hand. On your next exhale, come back into center, or inhale rather, come back into center. I apologize, it's early in the morning. And then from here, we're going to stretch over to the opposite side. So again, the right arm kind of come right behind you, either stretched out. You can bring it to your hip, you can bring it to the chair, whatever you feel like doing, and bring that left hand to the outer right thigh. Give yourself that twist over toward the right. Again, neck can extend and look all the way back, or you can kind of just bring your gaze out to the right. So breathe here for a moment. On your next exhale, release that twist, come back into the middle. And from where we're at, we're now going to work a little bit on the hips. So from the seated position, which again gives us a little extra challenge here as far as that being in a chair, but we're going to do our best with it. And on the ground, most of this will translate as well. So you can just let your hands rest wherever they fall here. And we're going to have anyone on their mat. You can lay down onto the ground for this one. So those of you who've taken class with me before have probably seen this particular pose. This is one of the most accessible of the hip opener poses that we can do while seated. So those of you on the ground, again, lay down, bring the soles of your feet to the ground with your knees bent. So that's how you're going to do it. Those of you in the chair, just stay seated away from the back of the chair safely, of course. And we're going to just do it from that posture. So let's go ahead and we're going to first lift our left foot off the ground. I'd like you to just use a little bit of a lift first. Just see where it can go, where that tension might be, and if this might be too much for you, you can feel free to modify in some ways, which I'll show. But ultimately, we're going to cross our left ankle over our right knee. Okay, so the further that your knee is up toward the sky, the easier this stretch is going to be. The lower toward the ground, the more difficult. So again, finding whichever version of this that you'd like. And I like to use my hands in this one just because you can use that as leverage. So if it's too much on your knee or too much on your hip here, feel free to kind of ease out of that and bring that knee up and kind of use some arm strength in this. So we're going to try to release as much as we can within the hip, but doing it in a safe manner. So we're going to also play around with this foot here that's up in the air. So with our left foot, we're going to flex it. So we're going to make it like we're standing on the wall to the side of us. So keeping some engagement there in our ankle. So again, hugging onto that knee as high as you need it, letting it release as much as you're able to. And those of you who are on the ground, you can kind of do the same thing to ease it in or out with that left hand, with that knee. So feeling that stretch in the outer part of your hip, maybe a little bit on the inner part as well. And then we're going to go a step further. Those of you on the ground, you're kind of just going to lift that right foot off the ground as we do this. Those of you who are in a chair, we're going to bring our heart down toward our leg. So it's going to be the same grab that we're going to do, but we're just going to move in different directions. So we're going to first thread our left hand through that hole we just created in between our leg here and our ankle. So bringing that hand through, we're just going to grasp underneath of the right thigh. So again, bringing both hands there if you're able, or still keeping one hand up to help that hip out. And we're just going to lean ourselves forward as much as we can. You can see I'm not coming down super far. I'm even just coming to here. I'm just interlacing my fingers behind that leg. I'm using my left elbow to help keep that hip a little bit more open. So you're able to do that as well if you want to play with both hands on the back of the thigh. And those of you on the ground, you're just simply lifting that right foot off of the ground here and kind of crunching into it this way. So again, coming into the same position regardless of where you're at. And then as we're in this kind of crunched position here in the chair, all of you who are able to, you can just let your head drop. Go ahead and just let your chin come to your chest. Let your head become heavy. And just hang out here for another moment. Next inhale gives us that oomph to come back up to seated. And then release that ankle. Go ahead and pedal out your feet or move your legs around in any way you feel you might need if that got crampy in any way. And then we're going to do the same thing opposite side. Now, before we actually do the stretch on that side, just kind of giving the thought to you as well that each side of our body is very different. They change day to day as well. So there's one day that you may be like, oh, I can stretch a lot on my left side, and next day it might be the opposite. So it has to do a lot with how we stand, how we sit, how we lay. Again, that we kind of build more tension on one side than the other in a lot of cases. So if you notice that difference, don't kick yourself over it. Just simply acknowledging it and knowing that you can just give some extra love, some extra attention to that particular side. So again, with those in chair, let's bring those ankles underneath of our knees at that 90-degree angle. And those of you on the ground who have released the pose are now laying there with knees bent and relaxing, laying back. Let's go ahead and cross the right ankle over the left knee here. So same thing, opposite side. Notice the differences, acknowledge them, make peace with them. And again, just take notice to what you may need to do for this side. If you need to keep that extra hand movement or arm strength on that leg, feel free to do so. But from here, we're going to find that same positioning. So let's go ahead and flex our right foot. So we're standing on the wall to the side of us, kind of proverbially here. And then as we bring our right hand down and through that hole we created, go ahead and interlace fingers behind the back of the left thigh. Again, you can use this right elbow to help give yourself a little bit of extra stretch in there. And again, just fold yourself forward as much as is comfortable. So just bringing your heart toward the front of the room. And those of you who are on the ground, you're bringing that left foot up into the air. You can use all the same techniques. And again, the further that knee is toward your chest, the easier it'll be. If you're in your seat in the chair, you can go ahead and just let your head drop. Chin comes to our chest. You might close your eyes for a moment. And then releasing the hands, release the stretch. Go ahead and let that foot come down, pedal out those feet. So just a quick time check I'm going to do here just to make sure I'm still recording for one, and also that we are on time. Perfect. All right. Good to go. So from that good hip stretch, so now we've worked the neck, we worked the shoulders, we worked a little bit of the mid-back, we worked a little bit of the hips. So let's get a little bit more into the legs because we're kind of moving down the body strategically here. So I'm going to sit to the side here just so you can see what I'm meaning by this. So first we're going to extend our right leg forward. So those of you who are on the ground, sit back up, please. And you're going to extend your right leg long in front of you. You keep the sole of your left foot to your inner right thigh by bending that knee and kind of just keeping that hip open. So that's your option if you're on the ground. If you are in the chair, again, just making sure you're at that 90-degree angle. And we're going to extend the right leg. So if you need to sit a little bit more forward within reason, feel free to do so. Enough that you can extend that leg without feeling like the chair is pinching onto it. So we're going to extend that. Let your left foot move out a little bit if you did have to scoot forward. And again, doing this all safely. So from here, we're going to kind of keep that left foot good and planted, find those roots like we were talking about, and we're going to flex our toes back toward our body. So that means bringing our toenail side of our toes kind of toward our chest. Now from here, if this is where your limit is, feel free to just stay here and let that leg hang. And that can be your stretch. If you would like to go further into it, you can fold forward. So again, within reason. In this case, we might want to bring our hands to the chair itself at first, just to give ourselves that little bit of safety. And you can kind of hold on and press down into the chair to keep that safe. So if you feel like you need that extra weight on the chair, feel free to keep the hands there. If you want to be daring, go ahead and bring your hands down over that right leg. So you can kind of grasp onto the shin or onto the knee or the thigh, whichever you can get to. And those of you on the ground, you're doing this hinging as well. So you're giving yourself that fold over top of that right leg. And we're just bringing our chest down toward the knee. So again, breathing here for a moment. Take a deep inhale and exhale. Inhale, exhale. This next inhale, we're just going to walk our hands back up toward our body or bring our hands off of the back of the chair to bring ourselves back up to seated. Okay, go ahead and bring that right foot in so that we're back at that right angle again, or that 90-degree angle. And then we're going to extend the left leg long. Okay, so left leg goes long here. And we're keeping the sole of the right foot planted. Same options, different side. Those of you on the ground can just swap out those legs and do any version of the stretch that you wish. And again, keeping hands either on the chair if you'd like to, or if you feel that you have that stability in the chair, being very careful, of course, we're going to hinge ourselves forward. So finding those hands to slide down toward the chin or down toward our knee or thigh, wherever you can reach to. You can let the head drop, releasing any tension in the neck that way. And again, 2 more big breaths. Let's inhale together and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and bring those hands back up toward your body. Go ahead and bring that leg back in and under us. Let's sit back a little bit on the chair. And then we're just going to extend both legs long. So if you want to have that extra mobility as you're in the chair, because you can see I can't really straighten my own legs even when I'm sitting this far back. So I do have to make some movement forward to just let my legs hang a little bit more to be able to extend. So feel free to find where that spot might be. But we're going to flex both toes toward our face here. And this time we're just going to kind of come into this stretch and kind of stretch back a little bit. So you can bring your hands behind you. So instead of hinging forward, we're kind of going to hinge back, but doing that same movement that we had with our cat and our cow pose where we were opening up the chest, we're going to kind of do that same thing. So I want you to intentionally bring one hand behind you and then the other. Picture behind you that your shoulder blades are coming in toward one another, almost like you're trying to pinch a pencil in between there. So bring the elbows in, zip the shoulders back a little bit, and then give yourself that lean. So we're finding some space in the chest. As you can see, it opens up a lot there. So finding that opening in the chest, keeping good leverage on the chair or on the ground with those hands, bringing your gaze up toward the sky. Take a deep inhale here, puff out the belly and the chest. Exhale it out. Inhale and exhale. Come back up to that comfortable seated position. Bring your feet back underneath of your knees. You could stay right as you are in the chair or scoot back that little bit. It is your preference there. It does not matter. So again, we worked a little bit of everything. We kind of went down from the head down to our toes here. So the last thing we're going to really work on is going to be the feet. So, I had a teacher at one point that used to say that shoes are the coffins for the feet, which I think is a hysterical little little visual there. But really thinking about that as we jam our feet into shoes, and sometimes if we're wearing heels or something along those lines, it can get very stressful on your feet. So why we don't stretch them more often is kind of silly, but again, just kind of finding this stretch in our feet here. So what we're going to do, and I'm just going to try to think of the best way to do so with those of you who are seated here as my mind is coming to this point. Those of you who are on the ground, if you just want to come up to seated with your legs both out in front of you, just very similar to how we had them before. If you haven't moved, that's fine. Keep them there. And you can just move your ankles and feet from that position. So from here in the chair, you can scoot yourself back, bring your back against the back of the chair. And we're going to move the feet and the ankles around a little bit. So let's go ahead and roll, bring the left ankle or left foot off the ground if you're in a chair. Otherwise, those of you who are seated can just do this from the seated position. So let's roll that ankle in one direction, kind of let any of those Rice Krispies that may be built in there out. Going the opposite way when it feels right. And then same thing with that flexing and now pointing of our toes. So pointing means you're literally pointing it at something. So I'm pointing my toes towards something. So that's straightening my foot out and really stretching to the top of my foot on this. So go ahead and point your toes toward the front of the room. And then flex your toes back toward your face like you're standing on the front wall here. And that's going to stretch a little bit of the back of our calf, our all of those good tendons and fun things in the back of our ankles and feet. And then go ahead and point again, flex it, And again, point, flex, and then bring that leg back down if you're in the chair, or just come back to resting with that leg if you're on the ground. Same thing, opposite side, right foot comes out or right leg extends if you're in the chair, otherwise just moving the ankle on the ground for all of my mat people. So let's go ahead and roll that right ankle in one direction, then the other. Go as many times as you feel is necessary. And then go ahead and come back to stillness. Point your toes toward the front of the room. And then bring the toes back toward the face. Go ahead and point and flex. One more time, point and flex. Bring that foot back down to the ground if it has come off of it. So we've gone through all of that here. And now coming into our bodies a little bit more for the meditation side of things. So now that we've moved, now we can kind of rest. So first, let's come back to our seat or down to the ground. So those of you on the mat, feel free to lay down. Whichever way is most comfortable. If you want to keep your knees bent how we had them when we were doing those hip stretches earlier, feel free to do so. That is definitely an option. Or you can just let the legs extend. You could bring your feet as wide as the mat and just let your knees come in and knock toward one another. That is fine also. So finding whichever way is most comfortable. Those of you in the chair, you can just plant your feet on the ground here. And wherever we're at then, just letting our minds come back into the room, let our breath come back to normal if it's a little bit worked up here after any movements. So coming out of that control of our breath and just simply surrendering to it instead. So I encourage you all to close your eyes or bring your gaze towards the ground. And this just helps to heighten all of our other senses as well. And it takes away any distraction. So that's mainly why we want to do that, is to bring our focus inside instead of it outside and into the room with everyone else. So kind of finding that space that we keep for ourselves, just in our own bodies. So keeping our eyes closed if possible. Let's take a deep breath in and release it all out. And do 2 more big breaths like that. Take an inhale, exhale. 1 more, inhale and exhale. Find yourself coming back to that peaceful self. And now, just bringing our attention inward. So instead of coming into these distractions that we find, I know everyone's mind does it. Mine does it too. There's no way we're going to stop it from doing it at any point. But kind of coming into that acknowledgement that our minds race, our minds wander. That's just being human. So knowing that we can accept that nothing's wrong with us, that our mind is racing a little bit because we have somewhere, I believe it's upwards of 60,000 thoughts a day. Don't quote me on it, but it was a lot. So we have something on our mind near constantly. So there's not really a way or a trick to shut the mind down. That's not going to happen, even in the deepest of meditations. You may find glimpses of that, but it's not going to happen for long. So just knowing you're not an oddball because you're coming up with these thoughts when you should be resting. Again, that is natural within the body. But what we can simply do is we could reroute those thoughts for the time being. So that's what we're going to focus on here. So I'll give you 2 options. If you find some other type of analogy which would work for you, feel free to do that and share it with Sarah because I'm curious. But otherwise, our 2 options that I like to use as far as visualization goes when we have our eyes closed and we're just trying to calm the mind down to is any thoughts that come to the mind, picture them as text, almost like you have them written down or typed into your brain here, that you're seeing it behind your eyes. So letting those words form, watching them, and then picture a highway or picture the sky. If you're picturing a highway, we're going to find any exit that's coming up to the side of us as we're going along, and just let those words float off on that exit. You're going to stay on the same path, the same highway. Let those thoughts exit. If you're picturing the sky, you picture the color of the blue sky, picture how fluffy and white the clouds are, and let those words just float up into those clouds and let those clouds pass. So whichever thing works best for you as far as visualization goes, find that thing. Or give a try out to both. So any thoughts that come into the mind for the next few moments together yet, just letting them find that detour or that cloud. And know that we can come back to those thoughts when we need to come back to them. That nothing needs to eat at us. We don't need to think about things that aren't helpful in the moment. And also coming into that forgiveness within ourselves for having extra thoughts. So you may be thinking, ooh, I want my mind to be more clear. And what are we doing by doing that? We're bringing more thoughts in. You're not focusing on the moment. So just simply focus on where you are right now. So zoom all the way into where you are in space and time. And again, trying to have less thoughts than more. So also forgiving yourself for having all those extra thoughts. And knowing that it's acceptable, that it's human, that you don't have to be upset with those thoughts or that there's anything wrong with you for having them, but simply knowing that you don't have to harbor them. So coming into this moment, so kind of finding that anchor. So if our feet are on the ground, what sensations are we feeling in the bottom of our feet without moving them? Scanning up from our toes to the top of our head, is there any tension we can release in this moment? Are we inadvertently bringing our shoulders up toward our ears? Are we holding tension in our jaws? Are we putting too much stress on the body in the way we're seated or laying? Just finding those little tweaks of what we can do in the moment. So we're not really even moving. We're just simply being. And as we're in this moment of just being, we're just in this space, we're not moving, we're not thinking, we're not contributing to anything, but what we're doing is going to contribute toward your own peace. And as far as that peace goes and that peace of mind, there's a quote that's, if you find, or if it is out of your hands, it deserves freedom from your mind too. So again, if it's out of your hands, it deserves freedom from your mind too. So bringing that back into focus with freedom and forgiveness. So they go very much hand in hand. As we forgive ourselves, we find peace and freedom. As we find freedom, we find that forgiveness. So knowing that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have those extra thoughts that kind of nag at us or keep us awake at night, but we don't need to keep them. So in this moment, you might already have it in mind of like, ooh, I think of that all the time and that doesn't serve me. I want you to find that particular thought. Let that formulate behind your eyes So again, making that text appear, picturing whatever it is or any mental image it may even be that you might hold on to too often. Now I want you to take a big, deep inhale while we have that in mind. And on our exhale, we're going to let it float out the mouth here. So again, if you need to take one more breath in, do so. Exhale and let that breath go. Almost like you're exhaling that fog out of your body. If you need to take some more breaths, go ahead and do that with me here to let go of that fully. We're going to take 2 more together. Take an inhale in. Exhale however you please. And inhale. And exhale. So now, feeling any extra space you might have in your mind or in your body that might have been cleared out by allowing ourselves this forgiveness, allowing ourselves that peace of mind and that freedom. Again, giving yourself the gift of peace, that it's not out of our hands. Everything is from within us that we can gather together. So knowing that we have that strength inside to just simply let things go if we don't need them. And knowing that if we do hold on to them, it's going to hinder us. So just keeping that in focus. And when you're having any of these challenging thoughts outside of class or as you're trying to fall asleep or whatever the case may be as you're trying to relax, just knowing that that peace is inside, you can let those thoughts go out into the ether. And if it is something you do need to bring focus to in the future, you can do that at a more productive time. So with our eyes still closed or our gaze low at the ground, let's again come back to the physical sensations of the body as we wake back up here. So again, paying attention to anything that might be happening to our bodies as we're silently and still seated or laying. And then adding some gradual movements. Wiggle the fingers and toes. Move the wrists. Maybe move the ankles, lifting one foot up or the other. And then extending that movement, let it come to the arms, wiggle the arms around, let the legs move if you want to bend and straighten them. And then all of us, we're going to go ahead and reach our feet ahead of us a little bit here, maybe bringing them out in front of us off the chair. Let your arms come high over top of the head, come into a good full body stretch. And then releasing all of that back down. And simply coming up to a seated position if you're on your mat, or if you're in your chair, staying in that relaxed position with your back against the back of the chair. So from here, again, I'd like to just reiterate, again, forgiveness. Find that in all of those ways, to yourself, to others. Forgive yourself for not being able to let go right now, and let yourself be forgiven as well for, again, for any thoughts that may be coming into your mind as well. So knowing that, again, we can start out each day new. We don't have to bring yesterday with us. And that if it is causing you or costing you your peace of mind, or letting that wander, that it's not worth it. Let's take one last breath together. Inhale in and exhale. And we're going to end with the yogic word of namaste, which simply translates to the light in me sees and honors the light in you, and that we're all one. So let's swing our arms over top of our head one last time. Bring your palms to touch. Let your hands come down to your heart center, right at your chest. Bring your knuckles in toward your sternum. And simply let your head drop. You can close your eyes or keep your gaze low. And either out loud or in your own head, we'll say that sacred word together here, just meaning that we are all together and we are one, which is namaste. Thank you all for practicing with me today. Namaste. Thank you everyone for your time, for your attention. And again, if you should have any questions at all whatsoever or anything you'd like to share, feel free to let Sarah know, and she can bring that over to me. But otherwise, thank you again, and I will see you all next week.